How are you, Chill? Thank you very much for watching video. This actually is an interview with Lou Parker again. Actually, Lou Marks now. She has been married and is got a baby inside. But this interview is actually for our Wikipedia entry, which I'm not sure if it's even live yet, but it basically goes through my entire life history in an enormous amount of detail, which will give you a lot of tips and tricks and secrets behind what it is that is the K-Man. So if you're interested in more about me and my story, what got me here, make sure you check it out. Let me know what you think. Oh, you have a dictaphone? Oh, you're a journo, I forgot, yes.
Okay, so date of birth?
02/10/1974.
Where were you born?
Canberra Hospital.
Canberra Hospital.
Woden Hospital, the one that was blown up. They had to destroy all the evidence.
Well, after you were born there?
Mm-hmm. I know.
It's crazy. Best known for being an entrepreneur?
That and ribs.
Ribs?
Yeah, barbecue ribs. The best barbecue ribs you've ever had in your entire life. And steak. Ribs, steak, more specifically like a Wagyu, ribs,
Okay.
entrepreneur, good cook, great cook. I'm a really good cook.
Sounds like it's hard. We'll decide where to rank that. Okay. Mum, dad, sisters, brothers. How is your family made up?
I have a mum and a dad. They separated when I was 6 months old. I've got one full brother, and I've got 3 half siblings. So I've got a younger brother, Alex, who's autistic. I've got another younger sister, Karina, and another younger sister, Adele.
And they from your mum's side or your dad's?
Dad's remarried.
Cool. So what school did you go to then?
Which one? I've been to like 11.
Have you?
Yeah.
Did you finish your schooling in Canberra?
No. Started schooling in Canberra, then had a small stint in the US, very small stint, only a couple of months, and of schooling, and then back to Canberra, then Townsville, then Brisbane.
Wow, you moved around a lot.
A little bit.
Just family going in between?
Yeah, it's a long story. My mum got engaged to a guy in America. He was murdered, and so we actually had to go back to the US to help finalise all that stuff. And then when we came back, because although my parents split when I was 6 months, they never went through settlement until I was like 9.
Right.
And so when they started to go through settlement, it got kind of nasty. And then Mum basically put us on a bus and sent us as far away as she possibly could to Townsville. And then she followed not long after.
Wow. So you've talked about being dyslexic.
Yes.
That is a diagnosis, that you are dyslexic.
Yes.
Okay, so how did that affect you at school?
Was never good at reading. Never read very long, at all. I just didn't read. And I just struggled, especially when they would ask you to read out in class. Just couldn't do it. I just struggled, absolutely struggled. So I actually never read a book cover to cover until 23. Yeah.
That's incredible. And what age did you finish school?
18.
What did you do then?
I was in private security.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those shoulders.
Those shoulders. They gave me a gun. I started off doing armed escorts and personal protection. So personal protection would be for so I looked after U2, Madonna. Who else?
Amazing.
Bon Jovi. They're the big names, but smaller names like Australia, E17 from the UK, Jimmy Barnes a number of times. Quite a few. John Diesel, what's his name?
Yeah.
John Diesel?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I couldn't get enough work, armed work, because with the personal protection and armed escorts, and Japanese businessmen. So Japanese businessmen would come in, they'd carry either a certain amount in valuables or cash in order to warrant having someone with a gun. But there just wasn't enough to keep me going, so I started doing crowd control, which is basically a bouncer. Yeah.
Overseas or here?
In Australia.
Okay.
In the worst possible clubs in Brisbane. I was in the worst of the worst clubs, because I was really good at it. I was very good at it because I did martial arts all through school, and I was a bodybuilder, and I could lift heavy things, and so the company that I worked for, they had the major shareholder. They had the major share of the the Brisbane nightclub market, pubs and clubs, and so I was a part of a 3-man cleaning crew, and we used to get put into pubs and clubs that were out of control, either through violence or gangs, and we had to go in there and we had to basically evict the gangs. And that was pretty full on. So that's where got shot at, had a gun put in my mouth, I got stabbed. This was from a glass.
These are the near deaths?
There's some of, yeah. What else? Had a mate, I wouldn't say best mate, I had a good friend who died in front of me. He got stabbed stabbed in front of me in the heart. Had another friend that was shot dead on the door of a club. It was after you might even remember, actually, you're too young. Lewis Hopewadi got shot and he died, and then it was like, I think it was the next week I quit the industry. I quit the industry completely cold. I basically just realised, I looked at where I was and I was like, because I had a tendency to always show up in really bad situations, but to kind of save the day kind of thing. And I just knew if I kept going in this direction, one day I was going to turn up in a bad situation and I may not be able to save the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I quit and I, oh my God, this is bringing back memories. So I basically printed out a resume that wasn't very big, it was like 1 page, and I walked through Queen Street Mall handing it out to different businesses, and I got an interview on the spot at Rebel Sport, and they hired me on the spot.
So you didn't care what you were going to do, you just wanted to get a job?
Just wanted a real job. Yeah.
A real job?
A real job.
It's funny.
Yeah.
And you went to Rebel Sport, and then what did you do? Like, were you, I mean, because you're...
So packing shelves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I used to come in at the end of the day and just do all the merchandising, and basically packing shelves. I wasn't merchandising for sale, I was just merchandising for stock.
Yeah.
But I was big, like I was a massive guy at the time, and the manager just started talking to me, he's like, dude, like, what do you do? And I was like, I told him my story. He goes, but I was also, at that point I'd been like Australian champion bodybuilder, I was a state champion powerlifter, and I could talk. And he's like, dude, you can talk. And he's like, have you thought about doing sales? I was like, well, this is the job that I got. And so he gave me a job in sales, and within 2 weeks I was managing the fitness department in Rebel Sport, and then I got poached. We had a guy coming in who owned, at that time it was the largest fitness equipment supplier in Australia. He came in to do a price check on us, and I was doing a price check on a treadmill, and he pretended to be interested, and so I sold him the treadmill. He didn't buy it, but at the end of it he gave me his card and said, I want to offer you a job. And so that ended, what was it, like 3 weeks later? I started working for him, and I worked for him for, 3 years? Yeah.
Wow.
And then they sacked me.
Why did they sack you?
Because I turned up late every day for 3 months.
That
It might have a little bit to do with it.
Okay, so like, how has the merger happened? This, guy, you're a bodybuilder, you're a bodyguard, then you're at Rebel, then you do it, and then like now you're a business owner. So did you always know that there was like greater things for you, or?
I think I was lucky that my mum told me from a very early age that I was special. I think it had a different connotation back then. Because I used to get teased a lot. Like I'd come home crying. I still remember this. I'd come home crying and I'd say to Mum, the kids tease me at school. They say I'm different. They say, and she goes, she said, Kerwin, you're not different. You're just special. And so she really just reinforced that.
Why did they tease you?
Oh, I was different. I'm different.
So in what way?
Look, I can't recall as to why. It's almost like most kids who are bullied don't understand why they're bullied. It just happens. And I probably was that energy at that time that was, I probably projected an energy that was probably vulnerable. And, kids pick up on that and
Definitely.
have a go.
So you're here. How did you get here?
Okay, fill in the blanks. So security, Rebel Sport, got sacked. Went and got a job working for a security company again. But this was back into the product side, on the hardware side, like residential, commercial. Did really well selling stuff for them. Then I got approached by ADT, which were trying to basically bring in monitored alarm systems to Australia at the time. And so I picked up the ADT distributorship in a partnership with another guy, and we ran that for 12 months very successfully, turned it into $1 million operation in the first 3 months. But the guy that I was working with, my partner, wasn't a very above board kind of guy, so he was off the record. I can't prove it, but he was, put it this way, we made a lot of money, and then 11 months later, he disappeared. Like disappeared. Bank account's gone. Computer's gone. Like disappeared. And police, what was it? I don't know if it was fraud squad, but was it CIB? Criminal Intelligence Bureau? Yeah, CIB turned up 3 days later looking for him. He was wanted on fraud charges. So then, oh God, this is the best part. Then I got evicted from where I was living. I had nothing. I had to sell everything that I had. Everything I owned, I had to sell or give away to people I owed money to. And it was kind of bizarre because I was in this conundrum where business is gone. There was no way I was going to get it back. I was almost $200,000 in debt. I had to sell everything I had. And then I was getting evicted from where I was living for not paying rent. And my roommate, like when I sprung it on him, he was like, but why are we being evicted? I said, for not paying rent. He goes, but I pay rent. I was like, well, yeah, kind of, you would give me the money and then I'd spend it on fuel and food. And so I had to give him, I gave him my fish tank, I gave him my TV, I gave him my lounge room suite. I basically gave him almost everything and I sold my car. But then this was a really defining moment actually. I was ringing up this share place where you basically pay $69 to register as a sharer of apartments. And then they would then send you all the details of people who were looking for a roommate. And I had no money. Like I was like to the point where I actually was given the equivalent of food vouchers from whatever CES or Social Security was at the time to take to Franklin's. I don't know if you remember Franklin's. It was like the no frills, like the no name supermarket. Yeah. Just to get pasta and stuff. So I had no money. And I rang up this place and I was like, they said, what's your budget per week? And I was like, I don't know, $40. I'm like, okay, here's 3 places to go and look at. And I went and looked at these places and they were like fucking atrocious. Like, I'm talking, you walked in and there was like dudes smoking bongs and there was holes in the carpet. And I was like, so this is what I get for $40 a week. Okay, all right. Now, bearing in mind, I'd paid $90 a week before I got evicted. I saw these 3 places like, oh my God, is this what my life has come to? And so I rang the place back and I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I'm going to need to increase my budget. And they said, well, what's your budget? And I said, what have you got for like $110? I had no idea where this money was going to come from. And they said, oh, we've got 3 places. So they gave me 2 places. And the first place I looked at, I was like, oh yeah, ho-hum. And the next place I looked at, it was a lady's house who was going through early stages of a divorce. She was 34 in the fashion industry and just had wicked design skills. So I walked into her apartment and I was just like, holy shit, like this place is pimp, like pimp. And I had no idea where the fuck I was going to get the money. But I went and I got 2 different jobs that just gave me enough money to survive. But the whole time I was just thinking, it'll work out. It always does. It'll work out. It always does.
That's incredible.
Actually, I forgot about this. And then I helped a guy who had an internet company. It was called Voices of the Net. And so what he used to do is he used to run these 1-800 line ads and people would ring in. It was like $5.95 a minute. And he'd ask him like 5 questions. And then what it was essentially an audition to become voiceover talent.
Oh my God.
And so what this guy used to do is he'd just put all these ads all over Australia. People would ring up, he'd make lots of money, but he never did anything with the stuff. And so I bumped into him and we got talking and I was like, dude, there's a business here. Like there's a voiceover talent business here. And he's like, no, I don't know how it would work. And so I was like, just give me all the tapes. So he literally gave me a box of fucking tapes of all these auditions, thousands of auditions. And I started going through and listening to every single one. And then ringing the people who had made the audition and saying to them, look, I think you've got talent. But in order for us to register you on our website, you got to pay, I think it was like $299. And so I was going through and I was finding the talent in all of these recordings and then I was getting these deals and then I was getting basically a bit of a profit share. So it turns out this was a really fucking good idea. Such a good idea that the guy was like, oh, I don't need you anymore. And look, it was fine. If it didn't happen, it wouldn't happen. I think I was doing that for like 3 months and then it was kind of getting a bit bleak. And I was like, okay, where do I really suck? I suck at finance and I suck at admin. I'm going to go get a job at a bank. Very deliberate, very like essentialism. Okay, what are the skills that are missing? And so I went to a recruitment agency who were recruiting for the banks at the time, and I went through the recruitment process to get a job as a teller. I was fucking hilarious.
Well done.
Well, I don't know how well done it was.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So I fucked up the entire interview. And by fucked up, like, it was a typing test. I was like 10 words a minute. It was like fucking horrible. Actually, no, it wasn't. I think I got it up to like 30 because I practiced for like a week learning how to type. 90% of the interview was like technical, admin, knowledge, everything else. And then the last thing that they get you to do is a role play on how to sell a product, an insurance product. And I'm coming in, I've just run a company where I had 45 field agents and I was role playing with these guys for like an hour a day. And I was like, a role play? And so I fucking did this role play and the chick literally went, did that again. And I did it again. She goes, wait here. She goes out, she gets the CEO of the recruitment company, comes in and the CEO, she's like quite arrogant, a bit obnoxious. She sits down, she goes, okay then, and basically like, dance for me, monkey. And I started going through the role play and she started throwing me all these like wicked objections and I just fucking crushed them, peeled them apart, and she's just like, she literally just looks at me, she goes, what the fuck do you want to do working in a bank? And I was like, here's my story, had a business, failed, I'm weak in admin and finance, ta-da. and I'm 200 grand in debt. And she said, I can get you a job earning like 100K as a salesperson. Like, you're good, you're really good. And I was like, okay, I could be tempted. So I said, okay, fine. So they went to work to find me a job as a salesperson. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days later, I get a phone call from my rep, and she's like, oh my God, Kerwin, I have found the ultimate job for you. It's 120 base with commissions. The last guy made 180 grand, and from what I can tell, I don't think he's anything like you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, 120 grand. I was like 24, 25. Thinking, that's stupid money. I never even considered that kind of money. And then, because when we had the business, even though we'd got it to $1 million in 3 months, I was paid a $21,000 wage. So I'd never seen money. I'd made money, but I'd never seen it, if that makes sense. So then I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, fantastic. She's like, all right, when are you available? Tomorrow, 10 a.m.? Yep, okay. Oh, hang on, before you go, what's it selling? She goes, stationery. And I think this was the first legitimately honest moment in my life where I stopped on the phone dead, and I just spoke, and I just said, I'm so sorry, I can't get passionate about selling stationery. This is not for me. And she was like, what? What? And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself, fucking hell. I was hearing myself saying this going, are you right in the head, mate? Like, you need money right now. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I just can't get passionate about selling stationery. And she's like, have you got any idea how fucking hard I've worked to try and find you a role like this? And so she started to attack me. Because, in sales, you can use intimidation sometimes to persuade people, not a good strategy. And she went there. And she just started tearing shreds of me. She goes, I don't think you've got the talent anyway. I'm not sure you're up for the job. She goes, in fact, I think I've got another job here. I think it's perfect. At this point, I'm thinking, wow, you're a bitch. Like, you're really nasty. I need to get off the phone. And she goes, something to the effect of, before I go, there is one other job here. It's a $21,000 base. I think it's right up your alley. I was like, all right, I'm listening. What is it? She goes, it's for a company called Franklin Covey. And I'm like, Franklin Covey? I know that name from somewhere. I said, that's not Stephen Covey's company, is it? She goes, ugh. Yeah, he wrote some book, 7 Habits of something. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, New York bestseller for like fucking 15 years in a row. And I was like, get me the interview. And she's like, what? Because she was trying to be rude.
She was like,
here's a $21,000 job. And I was like, Stephen Covey? Yeah, I'm down for that. So I went in the next day, interviewed, they offered me the job on the spot, 21 grand base. And I think my next year I made the princely sum the next 12 months, including commissions of $37,730 something.
That's amazing. So you were selling?
I was selling time management programs, leadership programs, sales programs. Yeah, basically.
Did you like it?
I did, actually. I really loved it. And they probably could have kept me if they'd actually just given me a promotion, which is kind of weird because there was a gap came up. They wanted to promote someone into as a department head, and they chose the individual who had the best sales of everyone in the group, but everyone hated them. And so when they put this person in charge, I was just like, they kind of combined with, I got into trading IPOs, which is like initial public offerings. And so it was kind of it was around 2000. And so it was at the time when the tech industry was really hot. All the IPOs were just going fucking ballistic. And so I started off with, I borrowed, I think it was like $500 or $700 from a friend. And why is the number 2 grand is sticking in my head? But I don't know anyone who would have given me 2 grand. Let's say it was $500 to $2,000 I managed to get my hands on, and I started trading IPOs. And so I think my very first IPO, I think I bought maybe $2,000 worth of stock. And the stock went from 25 cents to $5. And so I kept on doubling down. And I just got lucky. I wasn't fucking smart. I just got lucky. Yeah, very lucky.
Was this what you were doing on the side?
While working at Franklin Covey. So anyway, because I was so into what I was doing with the trading and real estate and psychology, and everyone just knew that I was into everything. My managing director came, he's like, you're having a really good run on these trades. I was like, dude, I'm fucking killing it. He goes, next time you get a good tip, let me know. The very next tip that came across my table was for a company called Skynet Global. It might sound familiar because it's the name of the company from Terminator. And they were bringing in, this is before wireless internet, they were bringing in infrared wireless internet. And I'm thinking, wireless internet, this is going to be fucking massive. This is a no-brainer, but I didn't know the difference between Wi-Fi and infrared. And so I'm like, oh my God, it's backed by Singtel in Singapore. Oh, this is going to be massive. So I went to my my managing director. I said, dude, I've got a tip. I said, and I'm going to be going all in on it. He goes, what is it? And I gave it to him. He goes, phew. So basically, I didn't know. He put in, from what I have worked out, it was probably close to 80% of his life savings. And the stock went from 50 cents to 2 cents in 2 weeks. It was just a dog. It was a dog stock, infrared. No one was going to do it in infrared. The technology wasn't sound. And so I got a bit awkward. Got a little bit awkward. The only fucking tip, the only trade I made where I lost, and I lost big. And I'd managed to pay off my debt trading.
That's great though.
Yeah, look, it was. But I'd put like most of my bankroll into that trade. And so as a result, when it went south, I didn't really I'd paid my debts, but I didn't really come out with anything else. Yeah, and so I got kind of awkward. And so then I just went, I've got to get out. At this point, I'd been introduced to my first mentor before he became a mentor, a guy called Peter Sun. And yeah, Peter basically said to me, I'll train you on everything you need to know. I'll mentor you. I was like, fantastic. How do we get... I'll tell you the story. I was looking for a mentor because it was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I need to get back into business again because I can't work for someone else, especially this dude who I've just lost like a ton of money for. So I started asking around. I said, I got onto the track of someone told me, oh, you need a mentor. If your business failed, you need to get yourself a mentor. And I didn't even know what a fucking mentor was. I knew what a mentos was. I didn't know what a mentor was. And so I started asking around, and then some guy gave me a business card of this guy called Peter. I rang him and I was like, so I hear you're a mentor. He goes, yeah, that's what I do. I was like, well, I'd like to talk to you. I drove all the way down to the Gold Coast from Brisbane. It was packed. The Mermaid's restaurant was packed on a Saturday morning. It was like 11:30 in the morning. And I come in, I sit down, there's this Peter guy. He's like 6'7", Czechoslovakian, sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. We start talking, and he says to me, we just have the general banter. He starts doing a bit of a needs assessment. I tell him what I'm needing, and he goes, okay, sounds like you're pretty fucked up. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess you could say I've got some challenges. I didn't realise I was fucked, but... And he said, yeah, it sounds like you need what it is I do. And I was like, so what do you do? And then he started showing me all these case studies of people he'd worked with and built like $25 million businesses. And I was like, wow. And I said to him, dude, this is fantastic. I said, when do we get started? He goes, well, as soon as you pay my fee. I was like, fee? I was like, isn't this like a community service or something? He's like, no, this is what I do for a living. I was like, oh, okay. And I literally went to grab my wallet and said, oh, how much is it going to be? And he goes, 80 grand. I was like, oh, fuck, I'll leave that right there. I was like, I don't have 80 grand, Pete. He stood up fucking so fast and so bolt upright that the chair slid back behind him and went, Arr! And the whole fucking restaurant just went, whoosh, and everyone's like looking. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this looks like a gay lover fight. Because he just stood up and he stood over me and he's like, Kerwin, you're either going to find a way or an excuse. It's not a question of resources, it's a question of resourcefulness. Have a nice life.
Was that another defining moment?
Oh, massively. Turned around, walked out, and I just remember thinking, fucking hell. I drove home the whole way and I was like, what did he mean? I'm either going to find a way or I'm going to find an excuse. I want this. There's no excuse. I just don't have the money. And I started thinking, well, what did he mean? It's not a question of resources. It's a question of resourcefulness. Is he suggesting that I can get the money? Is he suggesting that there's some way? Maybe I can get the money. For real? Hey! Hey! Eric, you want another t-shirt? is that what did it? Well done, buddy.
Legend.
So, yeah, I drove home, and the whole way home I was asking the question, okay, how do I get the fucking money? How do I get the money? And I kept on asking. And by the time I pulled into my driveway in Red Hill in Brisbane, I came up with a funding strategy. It was so sophisticated. I basically devised, I was like, you know what I can do? I can get 4 credit card applications, I'll fill them all out simultaneously, and I'll run into each bank and I'll put them in all at the same time. And so I did.
Really?
And it worked.
That worked?
It worked. I have no idea why, because everyone's told me ever since, every time I share that story, they go, that would never work today. Like, it's just, but it worked. And
well, it was meant to work.
It was meant to work. I got the money, paid Pete, started working with Pete. Oh, well, he was mentoring me, and at the time he was mentoring me as a consultant. So I was basically going to become a business consultant, and I could sell his products as well.
Right.
So he had like tapes and videos and books. I wasn't interested in selling the tapes and videos and books. I wanted to be a consultant, but I was using the tapes and videos as books as like underpinning information. So instead of me selling the products, I'd be at home every night fucking mastering the products, reading the products, like just learning them rote back to front. And so I started selling my services as a consultant. I sold a bit of product, but I was more interested in the services. And I think I sold like 120 grand of stuff in like a really short period of time. It was like 3 or 4 months.
That is incredible.
And so Peter comes to me and is like, fuck, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, doing what you tell me. He's like, and it's working? I was like, yeah, is it not supposed to work? He's like, wow, I've never seen it work this well before. And he goes, you should come and work with me. And so he ended up offering me a joint venture partnership to come into one of his businesses that had been struggling and been turning over like 400 grand a year. Within 18 months, I got up to 8 million, 5 total net clear profit. And then at the end of the 18 months, he realized that I had too much control in his business. It was his business, and I was the guy. I managed, I led, I controlled, I basically was the business. And because he got another partner, there was a little bit of insecurity, and they basically called me in one day after one of our biggest events and said, oh, this is your last day. The partnership is going to be dissolved today. And I was so devastated because at that time, like all I'd done, I'd worked so hard, made them so much money. And look, I'd made a reasonable income, but the way that the deal was structured wasn't in my favour. I was like, well, fuck, what am I going to do now? And so I took 6 months off, walked into a flight centre, and basically where they got the big map of the world. And I said to the chick behind the counter, I said, what are the most spiritual places on the earth? And she goes, what? I was like, I want to know, where are the most spiritual places on earth? She's like, what? And anyway, this other chick was straight under it. She jumped up, she goes, Machu Picchu, and then Cradle of Life, and this other point, Ankara in Turkey. And so I basically just picked out all these spiritual places.
So why that? So at this stage in your journey, had you been exposed to that sort of... I
grew up with a mum who was psychic and clairvoyant, and dad who was an economist. So I've had a very, although I only saw my dad, every second weekend, that kind of thing.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it still had an impact. But with my mum, well done, E.
So you were already very aware of spirituality.
I was into it, yeah. I'd learned how to meditate at a very young age. Yeah. My mum had always used to drag me along to personal development seminars, and so I was kind of indoctrined into it. I went through 4 religions by the age of 14. So we started off as in Catholicism, and then we then converted to Mahakari, which is a cult. We then converted to born again Christianity, and we then converted to Buddhism.
I was just listening to you say that on How to Create this morning.
Is that right? And I'm no longer religious, I'm just fucking confused. It always gets a laugh.
Oh, wow. So you needed some zen, you needed to recharge, you needed to
No,
get away.
what I needed was to find myself, because in the meeting where it dissolved, one of the partners who didn't like me, he said some stuff that he thought he was trying to hurt me, but he didn't realise he was actually helping me. He gave me some really, let's just call it solid feedback that was a projection of himself that at the time I took very seriously, and I went, okay, I need to find myself because I don't know who I am. Because I came out of that meeting going, I had my whole fucking next 5 years planned out, and then in a moment, gone. And so I was like, I need to find myself. So literally that was my goal, was I'm gonna fly to the most spiritual places on the planet and find myself. And it was so fucking bizarre. I did Machu Picchu, and the Inca Trail was supposed to be like a 3-day walk. We ran it in a day and a half. I convinced 15 other people on my tribe, on my fucking tour, that we should run to Machu Picchu because it would be so much more fun. Because in my head, I had this vision, I was going to get to Machu Picchu, and some fucking monk was going to roll out from somewhere and go, I've been waiting for you. I literally had that in my head. I was like, I'm going to meet fucking Yoda at Machu Picchu. So I convinced everyone to run. Oh my God, we had people dropping from altitude sickness, and I was like, come on, keep it up. It was great. But what was interesting is I went to all these places, and didn't find anything I was looking for. And then as we were coming back into Sydney, landing after my 6, or at this point it got extended, it's like a 7-8 month sabbatical, I was like, oh my God, it's not out there, it's in here. And so that's when I started going inward again and started really just looking inside. And yeah, I kind of potted around, did bits and pieces, did a bit of consulting here and there, partnered with a few people on a couple of projects. And then what was the kicker? Yeah, there was probably a good 2 years where I was dating a girl who had a little daughter, Isabella. And Bella, when I first started dating, She was 2 and we dated for 2 years. And it was like this 2-year window where I just did enough to get by because I was really enjoying being someone's dad. Like I was just into it. Like I was so into it. And so for me, when that relationship ended and I ended it, it was almost like a bit of a, okay, now it's time to get serious with life again.
How old would have you been around this time?
2004, 2005. I'm really bad with years. Oh, I forgot something. Oh, it's only a little something. When I came back, was that before or after? Yeah, okay, so I was in Sydney. I think it was about the time I met, or just before or just after meeting. I bought a franchise.
Oh.
An international franchise called, I forgot.
Well,
I say I bought it. Thanks, buddy. But they basically were a high-level business consulting service, business consulting service, and their model was a franchise model. They'd been in Australia for like 2.5 years. They'd made I think they brought on maybe 3 franchisees in the 2.5 years that they were there. Serendipitous meeting between myself and my old partner who liked me and the guy who owned this business, put me in a room with him, and he tried to pitch me the franchise for Australia at like 1.8 million. And I was looking at his model and I was going, dude, I don't have 1.8 million. 2 things. First of all, I don't have 1.8 million. And secondly, if I did, I still wouldn't give it to you. I said, because I know what I can do to this business. Like I can fucking just do things to this business that you won't even be able to comprehend. And it's like back and forth, it's like, all right. But we ended up doing like a 50% deal. So it was 900,000, but it was basically going to be vendor finance against sales. Because he was like, you've got to have some skin in the game. I was like, look, I'm happy to put skin in the game, but I'm not putting anything out of pocket. Yeah. And so in the first 9 months, I did like 6.9 million in sales.
They were very pleased.
Oh my God, they were pissing their pants. And again, interesting, if I look at my patterns of failure, my patterns of failure have, in the past, typically always been related to not believing in myself enough, and always thinking, oh, I need to have someone else with me to do this. Like I can't do this by myself. I need a partner. And so I was still in that pattern at that time, and every time it'd be like partnership bad, partnership bad, partnership. I'm in this business, it's going well, and I bring on a partner. And that was obviously a big mistake. And he did some really stupid things, and because of the structure of our arrangement, we were in a partnership arrangement, not a shareholders arrangement. Yeah. And if you're in a partnership arrangement with someone and they do something, you become liable, even if they're not related to you. Just by the structure, the commercial nature of a partnership agreement, you are liable for anything that your partner does. So he did some stupid shit, and he brought a class action against him. And it was a big class action. It probably cost me out of pocket all the money I made. Like we'd made like 6.9 million, and I'd made a very healthy proportion of that. I probably would have spent, I don't know, 700 million on legals. And that's like dead money. I would have had more fun like lighting it on fire. Actually, no, I wouldn't. It still wouldn't have been fun either way. But yeah. So long story short, the class action was a product of my manifestation, not his. Because 2 weeks before the class action came about, I made a decision, a very, very, very deliberate and a very lucid and conscious decision that I was going to be a billionaire by the age of 65. Like I literally sat down, I was like, life, what am I going to do? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a billionaire. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to fucking give it everything I've got. And by age 65, I'm going to be a billionaire. And not because of the money. Like it was very, 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 very conscious of the fact that I was doing it because I thought it would be fun. Because one of the things I know is there's no amount of poverty that you can acquire that will help you change the world. And if you want to make a difference, then you need to make money. And so I was thinking, how can I make the biggest difference? I need to make more money. $1 billion, I should be able to make a significant dent in the universe. 2 weeks later, this class action pops up. And it dragged on for fucking months. And I kept on going, why is this happening to me? Why me? And then one day I asked the question, the answer came. I said, why is this happening to me? And it went, because you asked for it. And I was like, what do you mean I asked for it? You said you want to be a billionaire. Like, I was a full fucking conversation. You said you want to be a billionaire. I'm like, yeah, so? Well, if you want to be a billionaire, then you need some commercial litigation experience. Because at some point, you're going to need to know. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't see the connection. This was actually a manifestation of mine. It's not even his. I was like, wow, okay, fair enough. 2 weeks later, gone. As soon as I realized what was actually happening, it literally, the whole case just dissolved. And I was like, wow, okay, that was cool. Sold the partner of the business, well, basically gave it to him. And then what did I do next? took some time off. Yeah, that's right. I remember this well. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of money in the bank, and I had no dependents. I had no girlfriend. Yeah, I basically.
Crazy.
I didn't go batshit crazy. I just partied. I had one of my best mates move in with me, which was probably not a smart idea. Bought a big kick-ass barbecue, and I had this beautiful place by the beach.
Are you in Sydney?
Yeah, still in Sydney. I was living in Bunga Beach. Had this. It was a shit house, but it was this beautiful shit house right beside the beach. And the beautiful 180-degree views on a private beach in the northern beach. It was just stunning. And so we just became the party pad.
Bachelors.
Well, actually, it was at the time. There was like 7 of us, and we were all sitting around joking about how one day we're all going to be fucking married and with kids. And sure enough, we all are. But yeah, we just used to have these barbecues, these random barbecues. Like I'd throw parties for strangers. Like
So cool, because that never happens ananymore.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
But when we would throw a party, like it wouldn't be like 100 people. There'd be like 40, 50 people maybe. But I'd go and I'd spend like $1,000 on meats, and I'd just
So you've
fully
had
do
that,
it.
You've experienced the whole, not frivolous, just having fun, doing what you want. Just
Dude, my frivolous stage was actually, and that's not even the best of it. My lead up, that was the lead up to my frivolous stage. I still remember my first year I made $1 million. I spent 1.2.
stop.
Yeah.
Did you?
Oh yeah, like I was just, as soon as it came in, I was fucking sending it out as fast as it could go.
What's that about?
At the time, it was more of a belief around money. It was a self-worth issue. It was like a worth. Like, am I really worth this? Have I earned the right to hang on to this? It was also compulsive. I can be very compulsive, very addictive personality. And so, yeah. Oh my God. And so this was the start of me learning how not to become frivolous.
Great.
This was really me learning.
Do you have to go?
I have an interview at 4, but they're not here. Learning about, I'd call it the value of money. Like I actually started to learn the value of money, and it came in little increments whereby all of a sudden big chunks of cash I had all of a sudden started getting apportioned here and there, and I had a few properties, and the one was a development site, and all of a sudden things started going pear-shaped. And it got to the point where I ran out of money. Like I literally ran out of money.
Which has been a familiar stock.
It was up until then, and that was the last time. And I made a very conscious decision. Once I ran, I was like, this pattern. I can see this. Never again. It has to change now. And what was the key? I don't think there was any one key. I think there was multiple situations over time where, because when you go from making millions of dollars and having a lot of money in the bank, and all of a sudden you got nothing, like nothing. I was renting a house. I'd sold all my property. I had nothing. I had $2,000 on a credit card, and I was throwing a party with what little money was left, and I was having an argument. It wasn't even an argument. It was a discussion with one of my mates who we call him the gunner. He's always going to do something, but he never does. And I'm the kind of guy, I can't not call people out on their shit. If they mean something to me, I'll call them out on their shit because I care. Like I genuinely care. And so I was calling him out on his shit like badly. And he literally turned it on me. He's like, well, you can fucking talk, man. Like, what are you doing with your life? And I was like, well, let's make a deal. Both of us will start a business next week and we'll go from there. But it was a $5,000 bet. And just on who can start a business and make it successful. Gunner Boy did nothing. And I went, okay, I'm going to get back into consulting, but I'm going to do a little bit differently this time because I like the consulting, but I like education more than consulting. I'm going to do seminars. And so I had my $2,000 on a credit card. I booked a hotel, like a venue, set up a website and everything else, and then just started marketing. And sure enough, the first event wasn't a huge success. I think we had maybe 25 people, but I made like maybe $15,000. And then as the money came in this time, I just had a very different respect for it. And I don't think I'd mastered the value of money, but yeah, it came pretty hard between probably 2008 and now. Just this value of money and just acknowledging how much effort goes into making money, whether it be $1 or $1 million, like there's a lot of effort that goes into it. And I went literally from having, at one stage I had 2 different sports cars and I had a fucking massive wardrobe and, I had 3 or 4, $10,000, $20,000 watches and brand new shoes. I still remember I bought a fucking $3,500 pair of shoes. Guys' shoes.
Wow.
Yeah, that'll make anyone's eyes water. And
Love to see them.
they were Bruno Margulies. Oh, stunning shoes. And now I dress like a bum, you know, I don't spend money. I know what makes me happy now. And spending money, although can help, it's just not what makes me happy.
Right.
Investing money makes me happy.
So from 2008 to now, was that building the business that you're currently in?
This iteration. So the company's been going since 2001, but it's gone through iterations of, you know, consulting services to franchise services, you know, to then the education and seminars, and that was really 2008. Hang on, it's 2009, because I had my stroke in 2009.
You had a stroke?
Yeah, 2009.
How the hell did that happen?
Well, okay, this is a bit of a story.
We might. I'm so down to do part 2 if this guy comes in.
I can keep going.
This is another story in itself. Like, this whole thing was Wikipedia, and it still is, but this is now like
lots of stories.
way amazing.
So anyway, I get invited by a friend to a spiritual discourse.
Oh, okay.
With a group of guys who run a temple in India called the Oneness Temple. And the Oneness Temple is essentially a westernized, commercialized version of spirituality that has been brought to the West from the East as a way to not only make money, but also to share, you know, spirituality and life and love and all that shit. So I'd heard about the Oneness University and these Oneness dasas, and a dasa is basically an Indian name for a monk. And a friend said, look, there's going to be like 15 people, they're all entrepreneurs, why don't you come along? I was like, yeah, cool, no worries. And so I come along and this dude walks in, he's only young, he's like mid-20s, and I swear to God, he had like the Jesus robe on, and I swear to God, he fucking glided. He didn't even walk, he was like, he just leaned, he was like he was on a hoverboard or something. And he had a really bad flu, and he sat at the front of the event, and for the first 20 minutes, he didn't fucking say a word. He just sat there with a smile on his face, and he looked at everyone in the eye, and the discomfort that created. And I was like, within the first 3 minutes, I'm like, what is he doing? And then also I was like, I know exactly what he's doing. He's sitting, he's being present, and he's observing what his presence is doing to others. And it was making everyone, for the most part, very uncomfortable. So then he opened up and he started talking about life, love, the internet and connectivity and how we're all connected. And then at the end of it, he goes, I'd like to give you guys all a gift. We call it a diksha. And the Western label is called a oneness blessing. And he goes, let me tell you about this blessing. He said, we've done work with the different universities all over the world with fMRIs to actually observe the brain and what the brain is doing when we give these blessings. And what we've observed is there's a part of the brain that is responsible for war, and there's a part of the brain that is responsible for consciousness. And the part of the brain that is, how do you say with war? There's a part of the brain that's responsible for you feeling separate, but it's also the part of the brain that's responsible for conflict on all levels. And I was like, back it up here, pal. Okay, I know neuropsychology, neurobiology, psychology. Explain that to me, because that doesn't make sense. He goes, well, the parietal lobe is a part of your brain that's responsible for spatial awareness. It's the part of the brain that helps you determine between where you finish and something else starts. So it essentially prevents you from walking in front of buses and cars, walking into tables and chairs, and accidentally, you know, inappropriately touching someone else, right? You've got to know where your boundaries are. And when we do these blessings, he said, that part of the brain slows down. So the feeling of separateness starts to slow down, and the frontal lobes start to become more active, and that's where we believe consciousness emanates from. So your feeling of being separate diminishes, and your feeling of being connected to something greater amplifies. So we amplify. So anyway, the dude gets up and he goes, so I want to give you everyone this blessing now. Everyone close your eyes. And I'm like a fucking 5-year-old in a suit. At the time I was still wearing suits, but I was like a 5-year-old in a suit. And I was looking out the corner of my eye what it was doing, and they had some chanting music on, and he was chanting, and he put his hands together and he had it over the crown of the people's heads as he was going down, and he was just channeling energy into the top of the head. And I remember thinking, okay, yeah, pretty cool. And then he gets to me and he puts his hands over my head, and I literally hear his voice start to shake. And so I open my eyes and I can see him shaking. And I remember thinking to myself, that didn't fucking happen to anybody else that I was like peering out the left of my eye. And then I just went and completely blissed out. And by the time I kind of woke back up and came around, he was like 2 or 3 people down. And I remember I opened my eyes like, what the fuck just happened? I looked down and he looked at me and he just smiled, this little Indian smile. And I walked out there, I was like, wow, that was incredible. And then it was at 3:58 the next day, I suffered the stroke. And what was interesting is my PA at the time, like she was into the alternative stuff. She knew I'd been there. She goes, because long story short, I had a chicken in one hand and I was making myself lunch. I was working from home. PA was sitting at her desk in the lounge room, and she just looked at me. She goes, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." "Why?" She goes, "You don't look too good." I was like, "No, I'm fine." And all of a sudden I started talking like this. And I was like, "What the fuck?" And I looked down and I had saliva just pouring out of my mouth, onto my chest. And so I started laughing. Like I thought, "What the fuck's happening? Am I drunk?" Like it was legitimately quite funny. You have to be there. So I started laughing, but then all of a sudden I started feeling really kind of like everything was like going in and out, and she goes, sit down, you need to ground yourself. So I crouched down, I squat. She goes, put your hands on the ground, ground yourself. And I thought I put my hands on the ground, and she kept on screaming in my ear, put your hands on the ground. I was like, I haven't put my hands on the ground. And I didn't realize I turned over this hand here, it was twisted up like this. Yeah, but I was feeling the ground. Like I was like, I remember going, oh, it's cold, but my hand's up here. And I'm like, what the fuck? Apparently it's called phantom feelings, like where the limb is still there. But Michael, where's Marie? Can you interrupt and just ask her to take the first round?
That is insane. What did they say caused that stroke?
Oh, this is the funny part. So I go to hospital, and sure enough, it's an Indian physician. And I'm telling him the symptoms, and he goes, "Oh, it sounds like you might have some epilepsy." Oh, long story short, while I was trying to touch the ground, and then she's like, "You need to lay down." I laid down and I completely went blank or black, and it was like all of a sudden I tapped into the mobile phone network. I know how weird this sounds, but I literally heard like 100 conversations overlapping with one another, and I just kept on saying out loud, I said, "Can you hear the voices?" Then my PA was like, "What?" I was like, "Can you hear the voices?" And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm calling an ambulance." And I remember saying, "Don't call an ambulance, just listen to the voices." And I kept on saying, "Can you hear what she's," because there was this one female voice that was dominant, and I was like trying so hard to hear what she was saying, because she was saying something. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, it felt like 15 seconds had gone by. I'd been out for like 18 minutes. I literally just wake up, and I was like, "Oh," and I stood up, and she's like, "I don't think you," and I took like 4 steps across the living room, and I just collapsed. And I went into like convulsions, and my body, I remember sitting there shaking uncontrollably, and I saw puddles of sweat just going, whoosh, just pouring out of me. Like I had water pouring out of me. It was like I was a fountain.
How old are you when you had this?
2009, February 24th, 34.
4 years old.
So yeah, puddles. She wanted to call the ambulance. Don't call the ambulance. I'll walk in. Really silly in reflection. I should have just got an ambulance. Got taken to the hospital, and they're like, "Oh, we think you've got epilepsy. We'll give you some tests." They ran a few tests. He comes back. He goes, "Oh, okay. So it appears, Mr. Ray, you've actually had a stroke." And I was like, "Oh, by stroke you mean like a TIA, which is like a really kind of small microscopic stroke?" No, you've had a 2.5 centimetre stroke. We're trying to work out 2 things. Number 1, why you're not severely disabled, and number 2, why you're not at least in the ICU. Like, can you explain how this may have happened? I'm like, okay, so here's the deal. There's this Indian guy, and he gave me this blessing, and they've got all. He's like even though they had, because this Indian guy, even though they had all the data on the research that they'd done with all the different universities of what happens, they weren't interested in it all. I was like, no, there's got to be something else. So, well, I think I got bitten by a mosquito yesterday. Like I literally was like, I got bitten by something yesterday. I don't think, no, that's not it. So I stayed in hospital for 2.5 weeks. I had every fucking test under the sun. Spiral taps, CTs, MRIs, thyroid scan, everything. At the end of 2.5 weeks, they're like, "Dude, we don't know why the fuck this happened."
Shitting.
Nothing. And they're like, do you have anything to add? I was like, there's the dude, the Indian dude. Remember the Indian? They're like, we're not fucking interested in the Indian dude. Even the Indian doctor, who was, I think he was Hindi, who you would think would be relatively open from that perspective. Nah, not interested at all. And they just said, look, you may not be able to work for at least 12 months. The brain damage could be permanent, because I had short-term memory. I had a 15-second memory, and I couldn't speak properly. So every 15 seconds, it was like someone hit the reset button, and I just forgot what I was talking about. It still happens from time to time if I'm tired, or if I have a few drinks and I'm tired, it comes back pretty hard. And that's where it really taught me the importance of, it came at the perfect time to teach me to stop listening and start feeling again. Because when people came in to visit me or doctors came in, I couldn't remember what they were saying. Like they would talk to me and like 15 seconds I was like, dude, I'm so sorry, it must be getting really boring for you, but I can't remember what were we talking about. And so after a while, it became kind of awkward. It was only short-term memory, it wasn't long-term memory, so I knew I was forgetting. It would have been super funny if I didn't know I was forgetting. That would have been like hilarious. So I stopped listening when people came and sat with me and talked to me, and I just started feeling their energy. And I just really tuned into that part of me that I'd kind of maybe repressed for a little bit. So it was really beneficial. And then this is where it gets interesting. I was told I wouldn't be at work for at least 12 months. I was back at work, I think 4 weeks later. I was back on stage 6 weeks later. And this is where it got super weird. I normally leave the first 25, 30 minutes of the presentation just to wing it and connect with the audience and just see where the energy goes, and I get directed by them. And all of a sudden, I'm at the back of the room about to get introduced. I can't even remember what I'm supposed to be talking about. I can't even remember what's in my fucking slides. I don't even know which presentation I'm about to go up and give, right? And I'm just remember thinking, it's all right, just be one step ahead, one step ahead. And so anyway, I got introduced, I walked up on stage, took a few deep breaths, and then I started sharing. And all of a sudden I started sharing shit, and I had no idea where it was coming from. None. Like I was sharing concepts from science, I was sharing concepts from physics, concepts from in some cases scripture and philosophy. I had no fucking idea where it came from, none. And then when I got off stage later that night, I was sitting there and meditating, and in that quiet period where everything went black, I remember very lucidly post the experience. See ya, Amy.
Bye, Dal.
That there was a brief window, and I don't know if it was 3 seconds or 30 seconds or 3 minutes, where every time I thought of a problem, the answer came. Like I kid you not, I fucking understood, and this sounds so radical and so bizarre, but I understood everything. And I know that's a big statement to make, but I would think of any concept, whether it be material concept, philosophical, spirit, and I just understood. The answers were there. And I remember just thinking, like there was this,
nice.
yeah, like I get it now. Like there was a real, and I know how wacky it sounds, but there was this, and maybe I was completely, I was brain damaged, so anything's possible. But then all of a sudden, when I started speaking, all the realizations from all the questions I asked started coming out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. And over 9 months, they'd take those 25 minutes, and I was doing these diagrams, and I was like, literally, I'd be doing these diagrams, and I'm like, where the fuck is this going? What is coming next? Because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, because this is just weird. And after 9 months of me jotting down all of my little, actually, I wonder if I've got it here. All the diagrams and bullet points, that's when I came up with a program called How to Create. And that became basically my life's work. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't run it anymore though. I still teach the content. I teach it at NISI, I teach it to the K2s. I'll bring it back at some point, but it's a very personal program to me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Hey, how you going? Sorry.
So sorry.
She's being entertained with your life story.
Well, she's either going to want to work here now, or she's going to be like, this is really nice, but I need to leave.
Sorry, Catherine, I'm not serious.
Now I can tell the truth.
So that must have been pretty defining for you
Noah?
as a person, yeah.
It's probably been the greatest defining moment in my life to date. Reason being, because when I grew up, I grew up with friends that had parents. Like I didn't have any friends that had separated parents or divorced parents. And so for me, I was very aware of the fact that I didn't have a dad my entire life. Even though I had a dad, like even now, like we're acquaintances, we're civil, we don't not like each other. I like him, he's a good guy, but I don't look at him and go, oh, you're my dad. So, and this is the benefits, because voids breed values, right? The things that are missing are the things that we want. And so for the longest time, I wanted a dad, but then I started to get exposed to, I had one of my best mates, his dad was abusive, used to beat the shit out of him in front of me, like he'd get drunk and just like smack the shit out of him. I had another mate's dad who was, pretty much just not there, not present, just, very neutral. And then I had another mate whose dad was just like he was a god, like he was a guru, gave so much love to everyone. He was just, and so I remember thinking, ooh, I'm glad I don't have a dad. I'm not really bothered I don't have a dad. Oh, that would be nice. And so I had a really good perspective on, it sounds bizarre, but I knew from a very young age I wasn't missing out.
Yeah.
I knew it, I just knew. But I also now know on reflection that that was preparing me to be the very best dad. Like, because I now, and it sounds a bit weird, but I used to fantasize about mum, like finding a guy. And mum did find a guy and she got engaged, but he got murdered, unfortunately. But I always used to fantasize about the kind of dad that I wanted. And what I didn't realize is I was actually creating the foundation for who I was going to be.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it was kind of cool.
And that just happened naturally?
Yeah, like Kristen was like, I was like, we need to plan this. No, it's just going to happen. No, we need to plan. And sure enough, fucking just happened. The first one just happened. The second one hasn't been as easy. But yeah, it's just, and from the moment she showed me the pregnancy tests and I fucking literally screamed like a little child, like ran around, did a little happy dance. To the moment he was born, like 26 hours of labour, I didn't sleep the whole thing. I was there, I was present, I was fucking, like I was on. And then the moment he crowned and his head popped out, oh my God, I was a fucking blithering mess. Yeah. Absolute mess. And yeah, it's given me much greater purpose to my life, much more respect for time, much more respect for money, but also much greater respect for legacy. Because I now realise, you know, touch wood, all going well, that I'm leaving more than just, you know, a reputation behind. I now have a son, you know. And so when he starts saying things now, and who knows what he's going to do, he's going to be his own man. But like right now, his whole thing is, Dad, are you going on stage? Yeah. Can Noah go on stage with Dad? And I was like, yeah. I was on the road when I was in the US. I don't know if I said this to you or someone else. He was FaceTiming me. He's like, Dad, you on the road? I was like, yes, son. He goes, can Noah go on the road with Dad? And I was just like, oh, of course he can go on the road with me. Yes. Like even this morning, I was going out. He walked me out to my Uber this morning. He's like, Daddy, when can Noah go to work? And I was like, dude, as soon as it's legal, you're fucking in. If I have to get you like homeschooled at the office, like I would love nothing more than if at the age of 7, he's just like, Dad, this whole school thing, I like it, but I really want to be an entrepreneur. I'd be just like, okay, here's a computer, here's a desk. I would literally put him beside me and he would get, look, I'd let him start at the beginning, but I would literally give him every opportunity just to sit in on everything and just learn. Look, as I said, he's going to be his own man and I will respect and support whatever he wants to do. But I'll get a super fucking kick if he wants to be in business.
And how cool would it be to be able to give him those opportunities if that's what he wants? That's cool.
I actually don't think there's anything wrong with addiction. I think the challenge that we have is our perspective on what addiction is and what it means. Yeah. You know, what addiction taught me was not only that I'm very resourceful, but it also taught me everyone is addicted to something. Yeah. And most people are typically addicted to things that are either socially acceptable or so covert they don't even know. And nobody knows. You know, if someone's angry all the time, they don't realise that there's a chemical dependency that builds up in the brain towards, you know, what are they called? Neuropeptides that produce that feeling. Like you become addicted to your emotions. You become addicted to coffees. You know, people become addicted to exercise, dopamine, endorphins. Yeah. People become addicted to sex. You know, I think addiction is an incredibly important part of the human experience because I think it's when we understand our addictions that we really learn who we are. Yeah. You know, I went, I think it was like 4 years ago, I went through the 12 steps process. Not because I relapsed, I was just probably smoking more cannabis than I wanted to at the time. And I was just like, you know what, I don't think my work here is fully done. I need to do more work. And so I started going through the 12 steps program and I was like, my God. Like this is, and I still say this hand on heart, I still believe that the 12 steps program is the most potent form of personal development. Really? Oh, hands down. Wow. Nothing comes close. And so I went through it and I was like, holy, and I like to think at the time I went through 12 steps, I'm a pretty reasonably developed guy. Like I invested a reasonable amount of time and energy into personal development and I started going through this, I was like, whoa, this is it. Like this is the Bible. And so I think, you know, addiction plays a really important part in the human experience by understanding where our compulsions lie and what they mean, you know, what's underneath them, you know, what drives them. Because I know for me, the work that I've done around my own addiction has really just been uncovering pain. You know, in some cases it's pain. Actually, in most cases for me, it's pain. It's just things that have caused pain that I've just wanted to repress or forget.
Not think about it.
Not think about.
Get away from it.
Something else that did drive the speed addiction though is I was always a really lethargic kid. Like even though I was very active, like I was into athletics and sports and everything else. I'm not sure, but I think at the time I was perhaps living with an undiagnosed chronic fatigue. Yeah. Because it was bad. Like I'd come home from school, I'd sleep. I'd just sleep all the time. Like all the time. I remember even in like morning recess and lunchtimes, I'd sometimes want to lay down and sleep because I was just so fucking tired. And I still remember the first time I tried speed, it was like all of a sudden someone pressed a button. I was like, dude, I have so much fucking energy right now. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for. And so I think, although perhaps pain was the underlying reason why, you know, I got into drugs in the first place, the appeal at the surface level was very strong, because having lots of energy, you know, energy is the difference between success and not. The difference between good marriage, bad marriage, good health, bad health. You know, the amount of energy we have, you know, is in direct proportion with what we can produce. So.
Oh my god, I'm buzzing. I've got like so much in my head that I want to do with this.
Guys, so that's my life story. Should I put it in a book? But seriously, let me know your biggest takeaway, your number one biggest takeaway in the comment section below. And also, if you want more free content, more cool content, more content that presses your buttons in the right way at the right time to do the right thing, to make the right noise, make sure you hit the subscribe button so we can put more into your feed. Check it out. Say hi to your mum for me.